Well, thank you very much for joining us today for Eastridge Connection. This is a podcast that we've been putting together over the last nearly 3 months now as a church family, our ministry team, just each week seeking to spend some time in Scripture, spend some time together, and also connecting with you. And I am very grateful for some of the just really positive and encouraging feedback that I've received along the way over the last 2.5, nearly 3 months now. I'm really excited for what we've got in front of us today. Our norm is to spend some time with a particular passage or text, or maybe even with a specific topic along the way. But when we first rolled out a podcast in March, it was Ryan Smith, myself, and then Ken Ford. And recognizing that a lot of folks who are watching this are going to be Eastridge people, and you guys know us well, but also wanting to recognize that we may have some folks tuning in who aren't a part of our church family. My name is Jason Reeves. I'm the preaching minister here at the Eastridge Church of Christ. Ken Ford is one of our shepherds here at Eastridge, and he's also a medical doctor. And the first podcast that we put together some 10 weeks ago, we set out to address just the current state of things, the current pandemic, and also to talk about some of the precautions that we were implementing. And I guess at that time, we had just ceased or stopped, meeting on Sundays, and we were going about things from an online sort of format. And so today, really to kind of touch base again, and especially in a consideration of a potential new start date for Eastridge as we open our doors again, as our elders are prayerfully working toward when that is going to take place. For our purposes today, we are going to be discussing where we go from here. Our elders are currently processing the data, they're processing the information. And I'm so very appreciative of this opportunity to be able to communicate, to be able to share with you, and just recognizing that we're doing the best that we can in order to move forward as a church family, to move forward as leaders within this church context. And I'm so very thankful for our elders, for the role that you guys have played, continue to play, and how prayerfully you have been approaching this topic. Ken, I've got a few questions just to try to unpack a little bit at a time. The things that we have in mind to discuss tonight. Anything to begin with, or any thoughts that come to mind maybe before I begin a few of these questions?
First of all, thank you for the opportunity to visit with the congregation. The elders felt like it was time to kind of tell the congregation where we are, where we're going. We do very much hope. I know that when we delayed getting together, and instead of doing it May 31st, which was what we were hoping for,
right.
We had to hit that pause button. And I think some were afraid, gosh, Ken, does that mean, is it going to be months? I mean, what are we talking about? We hope it's just weeks, that we just needed to tap pause for a few weeks to be able to get things lined out and planned.
Gotcha.
And so I think that is something that the elders wanted the congregation to know, is that we're not talking months.
Right.
Heaven forbid.
Right.
I think that's the first thing to make to maybe settle the congregation a little bit.
Okay.
That we're not only moving towards getting together again, we're moving vigorously towards getting together again.
Okay. When it comes to approaching that Sunday, whatever that Sunday is, whenever it takes place, what does a new normal look like for us, do you think? Or do you think that there is a good reason for hope going forward?
Yeah.
That life's going to return to normal, and,
right.
and you might address what that looks like as a church family, or maybe just in general.
Yeah. Well, first of all, to start with the hope part, when I spoke last Sunday, I kind of laid out how extensive the process was, trying to get everything put in place to get together again. And I used a highly scientific term in describing the virus. I said it was a real booger. And
learned that in medical school, did you?
Yeah, that's
okay,
right.
All right.
I should have dumbed it down, but I used that highly scientific term. But I did get some questions, some response to that of, oh no, Are we all going to die? Is there any hope? How bad is this? So, I do think that there is a lot of reason for hope, and I'd kind of like to start there. That yes, life is going to return to normal, and I think that when we first went into lockdown as a country, I mean, honestly, everyone was scared to death, including the physicians. We really didn't know what we were dealing with. We had only seen some information from China. It looked bad. And I think it was that lack of understanding. Can we control this? Will social distancing and personal protective equipment, and will these things keep us from getting the infection? Will we be able to manage the patient? What is the death rate going to be? And so
so many unknown variables.
Unknowns, and when you've got those unknowns, I mean, really, the whole practice of medicine is based upon knowns, not unknowns. And me as a radiologist, I'm in the business of delivering hopefully accurate information to clinicians so they can make treatment decisions. We just didn't know, but I think there's some very good news coming out of what we've learned, and that is, first and foremost, the measures of protecting yourself, protecting your family, it really works. The rate of the healthcare providers in the Baylor Scott and White healthcare system of converting to COVID positive as they care for patients on the front lines has been very low, very low. What we have seen is that we were able to flatten the curve. We were able to control the infection rate. And so the protective measures that we're going to put into place when we come together, that we should all be doing in the community, these things work. And I do think it's going to allow us to be able to contain and control this virus as we wait for vaccines, treatments, game-changing events. Now, what will it look like when we come together? I think it's going to look like stages, just like you see in businesses. If you kind of want to look at what is it going to look like in Eastridge, look at businesses and what they're doing, because we're all following kind of the same playbook. It's the playbook given to us by executive order from the governor. But honestly, it's also just good old common sense practice with what we have learned about this virus and how to prevent it and how to contain it. And so we're going to go through phases. The first phase, which the elders have been kind of just calling phase 1, will be the most restrictive phase. And it will be the phase that feels very much like going to a business in a lot of ways. And it will have the least feeling of normal to it of the phases, but it will also have the most protections in place. Then I would assume as we get further down the line, hopefully warm weather and more humid temperatures are going to help us. I love this heat wave we've had this week. I almost wonder if that's God answering the prayers and turning up the temperature a little bit. Because, this virus doesn't like heat, It doesn't like sunlight, and it doesn't like humid environments. It likes the opposite of all those. And so I hope that after we have contained it for a while and we see that things are working, we can relax some of those steps. And it, with really each step of the way, both in the community, in business, and in the church, it's going to be making some changes. Then you wait about 2 weeks. How does it look? Because one of the things about this virus is that latency period. That incubation period can be up to about 2 weeks. So you do have to kind of wait a couple of weeks and see how are we doing. Well, if we're doing well, we can go to the next step. Do you want me to get very specific on what it might look like as far as phase 1?
Yeah, I think it's helpful, and maybe that even you're looking at what I'm looking at, or at least you're thinking in that direction, because I think it's helpful. There's not a person, there's not a person who if you've got access to a computer, at least a couple of times over the last couple of months, you've typed in, coronavirus map, USA, or I know we have folks who are maybe overly plugged in, who are saying, okay, who are looking daily. What does that curve look like?
Right.
And I think it's very helpful, especially to hear from you, because there's so many different articles out there, so much different input out there. But for folks to recognize that yes, what we're doing is helpful. What we're doing is making an impact. And here's why we've been trying to implement the things that we've been trying to implement, not just as a society, as a culture, as a country, but also specifically here at Eastridge. And so I think it's helpful to be able to be able to hear that from you, especially in thinking about maybe what it looks like short term and maybe longer term in regard to specifically our church family here at Eastridge.
Yeah, and I do want to kind of prepare the congregation ahead of time for what it's going to look like in phase one. We will also be sending out, we've already prepared, and we will be sending out soon a document that kind of goes through some of the at least health details. If you have these symptoms, don't come. If you have a fever, don't come. Some of those things that we need to just specifically say will be going out very soon. But some of the things that we will be implementing, and by the way, being able to start, the reason we can't tell you today what that start date is some of the things we're still acquiring. Yeah. Some of the cleaning supplies, getting the cleaning service in place, the backpack mister for the upholstery on the pews, those type things. We're still out finding those. Oh, the temperature. Being able to take your no-touch temperature, things like that.
I think that's helpful because maybe a lot of us would think, well, okay, I've got a mask, and so I'm ready to come to church. Right. And there's a whole lot more that has to be in place in regard to logistics. Yeah. In order for things to be able to go not only smoothly or to go well, but in order to approach things in the most healthy way possible.
That's right. And we talked a lot about could we only hold one service. We really don't think, with the social distancing that will be in place in the auditorium, we do not believe that we can house enough people in one service to be able to accommodate those who would like to worship here. And so we really do need to work with two services. Gotcha. We think we can get it with two services, but then we have to have a really rigorous cleaning in place between those two services so that everyone's safe. Yeah. And that is our goal, is to provide. We're a big church, and with big comes complexity in these type things, because this is a virus that for every additional human being, there's more risk. And so I think that our desire is to provide out of love and respect for each other. Like I said on Sunday, because we're family, because it matters. I don't want to infect anyone, right? Especially my beloved senior saints that we all love to death. I mean, heaven forbid that we do something that we could have avoided, that makes one of our precious brothers or sisters sick. Yep. And so I think it's in that spirit that we're just being as careful as we can be. Now, in phase one, to just hit maybe some ideas of what to be looking for. First of all, we will ask you if you have certain health situations. You can read about it online, kind of screener type questions. Please don't come. Stay at home, worship with us online. If you are over the age of 65, or if you have a vulnerable health condition, we strongly encourage you to continue to worship at home. Thank goodness we have that, and we can continue to do that. But for those who do come, first of all, entry into the building will be a little bit different than you're used to. There will probably only be about 3 entries available, so that we will have a special health screening team that will be divided up between the doors. I'm putting that team together now. Okay. We'll probably meet for the first time this weekend and start doing some training and brainstorming. But we need to check people's temperatures as they come in. There are people that have fever with the coronavirus and they don't even know they have it. So we do need to detect those individuals before they come in and sit with us and sing. And we would think that someone would be glad to find out that they actually had a fever and probably need to be tested. But we will be taking temperatures as folks come in. Those health screeners will also be answering questions if people have any. If someone shows up without a mask, don't show up without a mask. If someone shows up without a mask, we will be providing them with a mask. We have some sweet, wonderful ladies who have made us some beautiful masks. Right. We have a good supply of those ready to go. We've also ordered a few backups in case we were to run out of those. But we've got some wonderful masks to provide to folks. We'll make sure they have masks. Then they will probably have ushers that assist them to a location and make sure folks get spread out. Yeah, Family units can sit together, of course. Family units that are normally together. Now, remember, if I was to invite my dad to church here, and I've not seen my dad, I've not lived with my dad, I've not been with my dad, that's not really a family unit.
Right.
He's not been exposed to me. But for family units that are already together, exposed, sharing air, if you will, they can sit together. Every other pew will be taped off so that we cannot use every other pew. What does that do? That provides a little bit of that distance for singers to not sing on each other. Here's the one that I think will probably frustrate folks the most. We're going to wear the mask even when we sing. I hate to tell you, but singing is deep lung air. Singing is deep lung air, so we need to wear the mask while we sing. I think that's going to be awkward for Church of Christ folks, and that's something we're just going to have to work our way through. At least in phase 1, we need to have those masks on while you're here the whole time. And so prepare yourself for that. The elders have talked about we may actually continue to use the congregational singing and sing along with. The reason for that is we've still got a lot of people that will be attending online. We don't know if you'll even be able to understand us with masks on. We just don't know what that looks like yet.
What's that going to look like?
What's it going to look like? More importantly, what's it going to sound like? So we may do like we do on Sunday nights when we're learning songs. We sing along with. We may do a sing along with some, an a cappella congregational singing like we've been using. We'll get into that and modify as we need to. So that's something to look to prepare yourself for. And then when we leave, it will be orderly. Much like you might see at, for example, a wedding or a funeral. When you are dismissed by sections or rows so that folks can kind of get out in an orderly fashion without all bunching together in a herd.
Yeah, lessens the social interaction.
Yes. The bottom line is the face masks on, excellent hand hygiene. There will be, by the way, we will have some hand sanitizer stations around. I would recommend anybody that can get, a small supply to have in the purse or a pocket, recommend that as well. By the way, I know what somebody's going to think. What about communion? Oh, well, we're doing communion. We're Church of Christ, right? There will be communion. So yes, when you're taking communion, you'll have to pull the mask down, take the bread, put the mask back up. Pull the mask down, take the juice, put the mask back up. So yes, we will have to, for communion, have some moments of being unmasked. But, we talked about that, and we decided that in the Church of Christ, that just is what it is.
No, that makes sense.
And,
that makes sense.
And we are willing to deal with that, a little bit of risk so that we can take communion. We'll probably use the rip and sips if we can get a large enough supply and have some way of distributing those to the congregation. Then, between services, there's going to be a thorough and professional job of cleaning done. And then and a little bit of extra time between services so that we can get that done. And then, of course, no Bible classes yet. We'll continue to do those online. No nursery yet. And so that's kind of a high level what we're working toward on phase 1.
Well, and I know probably the first question someone might have is, okay, that's phase 1. When is phase 1 going to be over? How long is phase 1 going to last? There's not really a way to put a note.
There isn't, but just from a medical standpoint, I would strongly recommend that it last at least 2 to 3 weeks. Because you've got
once implemented.
Yes. You need to run it for 2 to 3 weeks just because of what we've learned about the virus. One of the sneaky factors of this virus. It's again a highly technical term that I use. This virus has sneaky factors. One of the sneaky factors is that long incubation period. The flu is pretty typically 3 to 5 days. This one can go up to 14 days of actually having contracted it. You've got the virus in your body. It is replicating. You are contagious, and you don't even know you have it for 7 to 14 days. So it's a sneaky factor, and it's a problem. So, yeah, I think whenever we make a change, just from a medical standpoint, you can just about set your clock to 2 weeks. And then start looking for what have we done. And, we're about 2 weeks now into relaxation of some of the social distancing in Texas. So it's time right now for us, the hypervigilant like myself, to be watching those daily curves and see what it looks like we've done.
Yeah.
And so I would think that it would be medically wise, it would be my advice that phase 1 would last at least 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay.
So we can kind of see how we're doing.
Yeah. We haven't set a date just yet as far as when this is going to begin, when that Sunday is going to occur. I mean, as soon as we have that date, obviously we'll be in communication and letting our people know. And you've touched on this a little bit, but who would you strongly recommend to stay home at least during that phase 1, during that early phase of reopening?
Yeah.
What would be the demographics or the portions of our congregation that you would say, you know what, I would really encourage you to stay home at least during this reopening time?
Right. Yeah, and I think it's important that certainly our senior saints hear that the elders are actually encouraging them to stay home. I think
some of our elders would fit into that category.
They would.
It's kind of a relative term,
They would.
But some of our elders fit into that category.
They would. Now, we are going to use the term strongly encourage.
Okay.
We do not feel comfortable telling someone they can't come to worship.
Okay.
Who wants to come to worship.
Okay.
We do not feel comfortable even thinking that way as an eldership. So the term that we would like to use is strongly encourage. If you fit into one of these categories and you want to come to worship, then we're actually going to do our best to protect you if you do come to worship. We may have a separate entrance for those that are particularly vulnerable. We may have a dedicated restroom for them to use, a special area in the auditorium to sit. And so if you fall into one of these groups, but you really, really, really want to come, I'm not going to tackle you at the door and say, why are you here?
Sure.
We're going to do our best to provide a safe environment for you. But those individuals, first of all, are the elderly. Now, that's a relative term.
Yeah, right.
But I'm going to define that in terms of what we know about the virus and mortality rates. And that very first talk, I showed the curve of the mortality rates from China. It's been about the same in the United States.
Okay.
And that is, it's 65 and up are the vulnerable ages. And as you go to each decade, 60s to 70s to 80s.
The mortality rate.
It does. And I mean, and if you get up into the 90s, surviving this is a real challenge.
Okay.
And so I would say the farther or the higher up you are on that 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, you really, really should stay at home. Because
the more you want to pay attention to that strongly encouraged part.
That strongly encouraged becomes a shout. And it's so funny because it is that older age group that they if the elders open the doors, it's a sin not to be here. And I think what we're telling you is we believe that God's going to provide a pass on this one, and it's okay to worship with us at home. And but if you want to come, we will obviously greet you with a big old smile and make sure you've got a mask on.
Well, one of the things that we've addressed during our weekly podcast, especially early on, is just an acknowledgement, just recognizing that for many of our folks, whether young or old, but especially someone who's older, there has never been a time in so many of our members' lives where they haven't been able to come to church.
I know.
Sunday after Sunday, week after week.
Right.
And then suddenly we find ourselves in this in this time frame where, wow, this is like something I've never known. And so maybe along with that, just recognizing that there is going to be a pull to respond to, well, the elders have opened the door.
Right.
I want to make sure that I'm there.
Yeah, I want to be faithful and be there.
But maybe a part of that faithfulness is just kind of seeing what's going to be best for you,
right,
and being a good steward of what God has given to you.
That's right.
So those who are older, as far as age demographic, who else? Maybe as far as those that are most vulnerable?
Those who either through chronic medical illness or other conditions are especially vulnerable to infections. And so, of course, cancer patients, those with diabetes, those with heart disease, those who might be on some sort of immunosuppressive medication, those with liver or kidney disease. Those are patients that are particularly vulnerable. those who already have pre-existing respiratory conditions, COPD, asthma,
Okay.
yes. Those patients, because they do have naturally inflamed airways, the virus, it's a little bit more sticky for the virus to get in there, and get in those airways and start the infectious process. And then the immune response is slowed as well. And so I think those individuals, and each person needs to make their own decision, but I think those individuals, it would be very smart for them to stay at home, certainly during this phase one.
Okay.
I mean, let's let others be the ones to stick their toe in the water and see how hot it is. And you sit it out for a few more weeks, and let's see where this is going. I think it would be very wise for them to do that. Like I say, the last thing we want to do is cause one of them to be exposed.
Yeah. Tirsa and I have even talked about our youngest daughter, Gracie, who's 6. She has asthma. She has all sorts of, now this time of year, she also has a lot of sinus issues and things like that. Like that. And so this time of year wreaks havoc on her sinus issues anyway.
Right.
But she also has asthma. And so we've even talked about when the time comes, what's going to be best for her. And so so these are questions that I know everyone's asking right now.
Y'all will need to talk that through. You can always talk to your doctor and get your doctor's opinion. We thought kids had a pass on this deal.
Some of the information that initially was coming out.
Yeah, initially we're like, thank goodness it doesn't affect the kids. Well, it turns out that's not true anymore.
Right.
This pediatric multi-system inflammatory syndrome, which is related to this Kawasaki disease, is serious business. And we do actually have some cases in North Texas now. And so kids are not actually getting a free pass on this. I would think that's a very serious conversation that you and Tirsa will need to have.
So those that are considered elderly, those that have pre-existing medical issues, anyone who's taking any sort of chemotherapy, any sort of treatment for cancer or anything like that.
That's right.
Pre-existing conditions, especially respiratory issues.
That's right. Diabetes, heart disease, liver disease, kidney disease, all those things affect your immune system.
All right.
And we have patients that have transplants. They're on immunosuppressants. Would not be a good idea. Would not be a good idea to come.
Okay. We've got a lot of folks who want to do something. I know this. This has been a time, especially as a preacher or as an elder, where I've just been encouraged so much along the way, where folks are reaching out, getting in touch, not only affirming what we're doing, affirming how we're going about things, asking questions. But we've got a lot of folks who want to, they want to ask. Or they're asking how can I help?
Right.
What can I do? And they want to do something. What would you advise someone who asks, how can I help? Or maybe even who's asking the question, what can my family and I, what can we do right now?
Well, first and foremost, if there are areas in that process that I just outlined, ushering, potentially helping to clean, the cleaning crew.
Okay.
I've already reached out to folks that I know have a medical background or in one of the medical fields to help me with the health screening process. Might be able to help us procure rip and sips. If you feel like you have a skill, or you're working in a business environment where you really have got this down, call the office, let us know what your expertise is, because the elders are actually dividing up all these areas of responsibility and then reaching out to the congregation to find helpers to help us implement these various parts of the process. So that would be very helpful. I've been reaching out to folks with health backgrounds, and I've been getting a very good response on having a nice sized team put together. Our greeting team will continue to do what they've always done and provide a friendly face underneath the mask. You have to notice the secondary features of a smile, but they'll be still greeting folks. But we're going to need help with ushering, potentially help with cleaning, other areas where we might be able to use assistance. Okay. And so reach out and let us know. Then for families, I think I feel very, very passionate that we need to put into practice what we've learned about this virus. And we are going to be successful in returning to normal, or as close to normal as we can get, to the extent that we do the things that allow us to get there. You know, one of the quotes of Tom Landry that I love is he said that I get men to do the things that they never wanted to do so that they can accomplish what they've always wanted to accomplish. And I just love that quote. And that's what we need to be doing as a society. And I think we need to be exempling as a church. And that is when we go out in public, when you go to the store, you need to have that mask on. You need to practice hand hygiene. The second you get back into that car, first of all, you need to not touch your face. You'll have a mask on, so that helps. But you need to not touch your face. When you need to cleanse those hands the second you get back in your car to make sure your hands are clean. Wear that mask until you're back in the car, then take it off, where you don't touch the front of them. Take it off carefully, lay it down, have it there for the next time you're going out. It's just important that we practice hand hygiene, that we socially distance, that we wear the mask when we're out. To the extent that we are willing to do that, we're going to be able to reopen our economy and we're going to get back to normal faster. If we believe we're bulletproof and we go out without masks on and we don't socially distance and we're elbow to elbow. You seen the pictures, elbow to elbow in these bars and stuff in Wisconsin? What? I mean, we just can't do that. So first and foremost, have a meeting in your family about, guys, come on, we're going to do this. We're going to wear masks. We're going to practice hand hygiene.
This is the protocol we're going to follow as a family.
Yeah, as a family, make a family decision that we're going to be good citizens. We're going to respect others' health, and we're going to do what we can. Secondly, talk about whether or not you want to try to come to the building during phase one. That's another thing that I think families need to engage that conversation. And there is absolutely no shame. There is absolutely no unfaithfulness, and there is absolutely no dishonor in taking a pass on phase one. The elders would encourage anyone who is uncomfortable with that decision to sit out phase one and continue to worship with us at home. Because we are still worshiping together in spirit during that time with that online worship. And so I think that is another thing. The last thing I would recommend is make sure that your family is ready. You've decided we're going to go. We're going to be on the ground. Phase one at Eastridge. We're going in. Okay, great. You got to get ready. How do you get ready? Well, you got to get masks. Now, if you don't have a mask, if you don't have access to a mask, you can use, the bandana, the T-shirt, one of those type options. Anything is better than nothing.
Okay.
We have wonderful ladies who have made masks. You can call the office and get a mask from us.
Right.
Those can be laundered and reused. And then, or you could procure some, medical masks for your family potentially if you can get some. Also, small pocket hand sanitizers would be a great idea, so that you can use those if you were to sneeze, if you were to cough, or something like that. Then you can use that hand sanitizer right there in the pew, and be clean. And then lastly, with the little kids, man, those little kids are not going to want to wear those masks, but they need to. They need to be old enough to wear a mask if they're going to come and be with us. We're not going to have child care back there, so they're going to be with us in the pews, hopefully singing. I love to hear those little kids sing. I just love it. So practice wearing a mask at home. Get them used to the idea of wearing a mask at home. Maybe even sing a song together at home and have fun with it. It doesn't even have to be a church song. Sing a song together. Get used to the idea of singing with that mask on. So that when they do come to church, they've had a mask on and they're kind of used to it. And they can do it. They're going to be able to comply with, and I'm talking about especially those kids that, they're in that 3, 4, 5, where it can be, real difficult to understand what this is all about and why I have to have this thing on my face. It'd be good to practice that.
We're a church family that since the first Sunday in January has said we're going to love God and we're going to love others to the very best of our ability. Right. This is who we want to be. This is how we want to be identified within within the greater context of the lives that we live.
Yes.
Sometimes a part of loving God and loving others are making some difficult decisions.
Absolutely.
Even and especially decisions that maybe you think, this is not really what I want to do, but I'm going to do this for the sake of someone else. I'm going to do this for the sake of others. I mean, it doesn't get more godly than that. And I also appreciate you addressing that yearning, that feeling within us of I want to. If this has taught us anything, it is the value of the design of God in Christian community. Mm-hmm. That yes, we can put together online content. Yes, we can live stream and we can do things to the best of our ability right now. But it is leaving so many of us with this yearning for what's within us anyway.
Right.
To have Christian community and fellowship and relationships with each other. But I really appreciate you, especially as an elder of our church, identifying, yes, that is a pull, that's a draw that we have. It's innate within us, and yet there are different decisions that have to be made for different individuals and families, and God's going to be honored by all that. I really appreciate
Absolutely.
that.
Yeah, and believe me, the elders, we desire very strongly to be faithful and brave. Mm-hmm. I don't think I know that there's not a single elder in our group who's afraid of dying. Mm-hmm. Not a single one. Mm-hmm. We're confident in our relationship with Christ. And we know that there's nothing on this earth that can separate us from the love of God. And there, I think there's some sense maybe among us of, well, then how come you ain't going to church then? Mm-hmm. If you say you're not scared of death, mm-hmm. how come you ain't here?
Somehow it becomes a test of faith.
Yeah, well,
rather than simply trying to be a good steward of what God's given.
Yeah, why don't you put that into action, Brother Ford, and get yourself in there, and God's got this.
Right.
And believe me, I'm sensitive to that, and yes, at some level, there's some truth in that. However, don't forget, it is one thing for me to decide that I'm going to go into harm's way mm-hmm. because I know that I'm saved mm-hmm. and I'm ready to be with Jesus. Mm-hmm. Better by far, Paul says. It's a whole nother thing for me to make that decision for you.
Right.
It's a whole nother thing for me to make that decision for someone who maybe hasn't come to Christ yet, mm-hmm. who is still thinking about being a Christian, who hasn't made that decision. And I'm going to make that decision for them and let them meet Jesus before they're ready.
Right.
So it's a whole nother thing to say, I am going to make that decision for somebody else. And if we come together and you don't want to wear that mask and I don't want to practice this up, but I'm going to be there. I don't want to do any of those safe things. Well, think about your brother and sister.
Mm-hmm. Good.
Think about put yourself second. Christianity is not about putting yourself first.
That's right.
It's about putting yourself 50th. Not even second. The thing, I am second.
Right. Right.
That's probably not even
I'm way further back than that.
Yeah, further back than that. The further back, the better, right? Yeah. It's about looking out for others. This is about caring for others. If you are just absolutely adverse to the idea of wearing a mask or any of that stuff and you think it's all silliness, then sit out phase one. Mm-hmm. Just sit it out. Mm-hmm. But yeah. And also, we have had some folks from Eastridge come down with COVID. Mm-hmm. That's not very well known. Mm-hmm. Those individuals obviously would prefer that their names not be mentioned. Right. But one individual actually was in Baylor Hospital for nearly 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. It is, and another individual is probably one of the fittest, healthiest people I know, and describes it as a serious week of time that was not fun at all. So for the best of us, it can be a very, very serious flu, but for others, it can be really bad. And so that's why it really is important for us to put others first, put self second or last, and yes, it's an opportunity to be stewards of the love and yieldedness that is inherent within the Christian faith.
Excellent.
So,
very good. Well, Ken, I really appreciate your willingness to come and to sit down. And I think this is if we're trying to be communicative and trying to put this in front of our people, this is a very good avenue for us to be able to
Well, and
to do that?
We'll do one more when we actually are just about ready to go live.
Okay.
And it's already been announced, the day that we're going live. I think we should do one more where we actually maybe even do a walkthrough and really let people see, okay, here is specifically what you can expect this Sunday when you come. And we'll try to do something like that.
So maybe once a date is set, for that to be something that we email out maybe the week before or a few days before, something like that,
right.
just so folks can know what to anticipate.
Yeah, and certainly in writing, we might also we could potentially even have another conversation like this.
Yeah.
To let them hear, okay, here is exactly where we landed on the process, so that they know exactly what to expect.
Okay. All right. So be looking for us to further communicate, as decisions are made, as information is gathered, as it's processed, as different processes are put in place. That's kind of where we're at and what we're looking toward. And you will be the first to know as soon as all those things begin to come together for us, and they are coming together. It's just a matter of continuing that process and then putting that in front of our people. Any final words or thoughts? Anything that you can think of that maybe that we've missed along the way? I know some of it's kind of it's kind of like trying to drink from a fire hydrant. At the same time, just to be able to put this in front of our people was really our goal for today.
I think just to recap that, I think there's a lot of reason for hope. I think that we've learned that we can manage this if we're smart, if we do the things we talked about. We believe the church will meet sooner rather than later, weeks, not months. So stay tuned. Just as soon as we can get the processes mapped out and get the supplies that we need for the processes, we'll be ready to go, and be in prayer. I believe that God, I still believe He can bug zap this thing. His spoken word, He can bug zap this thing. He can change the temperature. It'd be so God to increase that temperature and that humidity above what we would expect to just hammer this virus down.
Summer to start a little bit early.
Yeah. And everybody's like, oh, God didn't do that. But the faithful see,
right.
Yeah, that was probably God doing that. So pray that God bug zaps this thing. Pray for the elders and our workers, our congregation, to stay safe when we do come together. And in the end, I think prayer will fire the winning shot.
Well, I appreciate you beginning and ending us with hope, and just the hope that we have that God's got this. And there's no question in that regard. It's just a matter of being faithful to understanding all of this and what He's called us to, and God's going to trusting that God is going to see us through, and also to have an emphasis on prayer. And that further solidifies that we're in this together. We're praying in this regard together. And you said something in our first podcast that has just stuck with me, and it's been repeated by a couple of us on different occasions. That right now, just wherever you are, whatever you've got going on in life, don't waste a good crisis.
Right.
That's my take from this COVID virus of 2020. Don't waste a good crisis.
Right.
And so continue to recognize that God's not done yet, and He's at work in beautiful ways through all of this.
I don't think we have. I'm so thrilled with the work the ministry team has done. The podcast, the Bible classes, the reaching out. The congregation has been looking after each other. We've been worshiping. The classes, the small groups, all these just organic gatherings, the ladies' Bible class. I really think that I'm thrilled as a shepherd. I know the other shepherds are too, to see that we've, I don't think we've wasted a good crisis. And I love the hunger that everybody has to get together again. I love the fact that when we said we're not ready on May 31st, that there are a lot of people were upset. That's a good thing.
Right.
And so, I think I'm really pleased with the way we have responded to this as a church family.
Yeah.
And I know all the elders are too.
Very much so. All right, stay tuned. We'll continue to put information in front of you. Greatly appreciate you spending your time watching this podcast and connecting in this way. And before we wrap things up today, Ken, would you mind closing us with a word of prayer?
You bet.
All right.
Happy to. Father, we just we thank you so much that you are the great physician. You are the great I am. There is nothing that is outside your purview, outside your power, outside your dominion and providence. And Lord, we thank you that you've brought us this far, and that you have helped us to to stay safe to this point, that you have protected those from our fold that have come down with the virus, and you've healed them. We're so thankful for that, Lord. Lord, now as we get ready to come together again, give us wisdom, give us patience for each other, give us love for each other, compassion for each other, always putting the other first, always looking out for the other brother and sister, doing whatever we can to make this environment the safest and the most uplifting place that we can come and that we can be together, that we can enjoy fellowship. Fellowship in a little bit different way. But Lord, I pray that sooner than any of us expect, that this virus will go away, either by your command or by your working through nature or through a vaccine or through a treatment, that this virus will go away and that we can truly return back to normal as we knew it before. And Lord, I am thankful that the church has gotten stronger because of this. The church always does when it's persecuted. And Lord, I'm thankful that we've grown stronger. We've grown deeper in our love. And Lord, I just pray that you continue to hold our hands as we watch after each other and as we love each other through this. We thank you for your Son. We thank you, Lord, that you do have the ultimate victory and that there's nothing on this earth, COVID virus or otherwise, that can separate us from your love. We thank you for this, and we thank you for your Son, and it's in his name we pray. Amen.
Have a good week. See you soon.